You don't start with fear. You start with doubt. Because the most terrifying stories aren't the ones filled with monsters or shadows. They're the ones that feel possible. The kind where you sit there, watching, telling yourself there has to be an explanation. There has to be a reason. Until slowly, piece by piece, that explanation disappears. And what's left behind is something you can't explain. Tonight, we're not just revisiting one of the most famous haunted locations in American history. We're putting it on trial. The house. The stories. The witnesses. The investigators. And the fear that has followed it for decades. The Conjuring House. Was it truly haunted, or is it one of the most convincing illusions ever created? Before we go any further, if you're drawn to real cases, unsettling truths, and stories that refuse to stay buried, subscribe. Because what you're about to hear doesn't get simpler the deeper you go. This isn't just a story. This is a verdict. And by the end of this video, you'll have to decide for yourself. Because we're going to break everything down. Every claim. Every piece of evidence. Every contradiction. And when we're done, the truth might be even more disturbing than the haunting itself. It begins with a quiet farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. A place that, at first glance, looks like something out of a peaceful American dream. Wide land. Old wood. Silence. But silence can be deceptive. In the early 1970s, the Perron family moved into that house. A normal family. Parents. Children. A fresh start. Nothing unusual. At least, not at first. The first signs weren't dramatic. No violent events. No screaming voices in the night. Just small things. Things that are easy to ignore. A broom moving from one place to another. Strange sounds echoing through the walls. Objects that didn't stay where they were left. If you've ever lived in an old house, you know how easy it is to explain things like that away. Old wood shifts. Pipes make noise. Memory plays tricks. And that's exactly what makes this case so dangerous. Because the beginning always feels explainable. But then, it escalates. The Perron daughters began to notice something watching them. Not clearly. Not directly. Just a presence. The kind that makes the room feel heavier. The kind that makes you turn around, even when you know nothing is there. And over time, that feeling became impossible to ignore. The mother, Carolyn Perron, experienced the most intense phenomena. According to her accounts, the activity wasn't just random. It was targeted. She described moments where she felt something touching her. Watching her. Following her through the house. And then came the darker events. Bruises appearing without explanation. Whispers that didn't belong to anyone living in the house. And the sense that whatever was there wasn't just present. It was aware. Now here's where things start to divide people. Because belief depends on one critical question. Do you trust the witnesses? The Perron family maintained their story for decades. They didn't suddenly appear with claims years later. They spoke about it consistently. But consistency doesn't automatically mean truth. Human memory is flawed. Trauma reshapes perception. Fear amplifies imagination. So we have to ask, were they experiencing something real? Or were they slowly being consumed by their own fear? This is where the investigation becomes more complex. Because the case didn't stay within the family. It attracted attention. And eventually, it reached Ed and Lorraine Warren. Two of the most famous paranormal investigators in American history. Their involvement is what transformed this case from a private haunting into a global phenomenon. But their presence also introduces a new layer of doubt. Because the Warrens are not neutral observers. They believed in the paranormal. Their entire career was built around it. So when they stepped into the Conjuring House, were they investigating? Or were they reinforcing a narrative they already believed in? According to their accounts, the house was deeply haunted. Multiple entities. Some harmless. Some not. And one in particular stood out. A spirit believed to be connected to a woman named Bathsheba. A figure who, according to local legend, had a dark history tied to the land. This is where storytelling and history begin to blur. Because when you trace records, the evidence becomes unclear. There was a real woman named Bathsheba Sherman. But the claims surrounding her witchcraft, sacrifice, curses are not definitively proven. They exist in fragments. In rumors. In local folklore. And yet, in the narrative of the haunting, she becomes central. Almost like the story needed a villain. This raises a critical issue. Are we dealing with documented paranormal activity? Or are we watching a story evolve over time, becoming more dramatic with each retelling? Because that's how myths are formed. Not through lies, but through exaggeration layered on top of truth. The Warrens conducted a séance in the house. And this is often described as the turning point. According to reports, during the séance, Carolyn Perron became possessed. Her body reacted violently. Her voice changed. Her behavior became something her family didn't recognize. It's one of the most chilling moments tied to this case. But again, we have to pause. Because there is no verified recording of this event. No independent documentation. Everything we know comes from testimonies. And testimonies are not evidence. They are experiences. And experiences can be real, without being supernatural. Psychological stress, environmental factors, even group dynamics can create powerful shared experiences. Especially in a setting already filled with fear. So now we reach the core conflict. On one side, we have a family that lived through something they describe as terrifying and real. On the other, we have a lack of concrete, verifiable evidence. No clear recordings. No measurable data. Just stories. But stories don't survive for decades without reason. There's something about this case that refuses to disappear. Something that keeps pulling people back. Visitors. Investigators. Skeptics. Everyone wants to know the same thing. What actually happened in that house? Because if even a fraction of it is true, then it changes everything. And if it's not true, then how did so many people come to believe it? This is where we shift from storytelling into analysis. Because to reach a final verdict, we have to break this case down piece by piece. We have to examine the environment, the psychology, the history, and the motivations. We have to separate what is claimed from what is proven. And we have to do it without bias. No assumptions. No blind belief. Only questions. And the first question is simple. What kind of house was this, really? Old houses have a reputation for a reason. They creak. They settle. They produce sounds that feel alive. Infrasound, low-frequency vibrations, can cause unease, anxiety, even hallucinations. Mold exposure has been linked to cognitive disturbances and paranoia. Carbon monoxide leaks can cause confusion, fear, and sensory distortions. These are not theories. They are documented phenomena. So we have to ask, was the house creating the experience? Or was something else inside it? Because if natural explanations can account for the majority of events, then the supernatural becomes less necessary. But if even one element cannot be explained, then the possibility remains. And that possibility is what keeps this case alive. Because uncertainty is more powerful than proof. As we move deeper into this investigation, the question becomes more uncomfortable. Not just, was the house haunted? But something far more unsettling. What if the haunting wasn't the house at all? What if it was something within the people who experienced it? Or something that followed them instead of staying behind? And if that's the case, then the Conjuring House isn't just a location. It's a trigger, a doorway, or maybe a mirror, reflecting something far darker than a ghost story. So before we go further, ask yourself this. If you were in that house, hearing those sounds, seeing those shadows, at what point would you stop looking for explanations and start believing? Because once that line is crossed, there's no going back.